Okay, so what if I told you that the moon, that big rock in our sky, isn't a rock at all? What if it's actually a giant, hollow spaceship? Yeah, you heard me right. Today, we are diving deep into one of the weirdest, most persistent theories out there.
Now, I know it sounds like something straight out of a movie, but believe it or not, back in 1970, two pretty well-respected Soviet scientists, Mikhail Vosin and Alexander Sherbakov, actually published this exact idea. They seriously argued that the moon was built by aliens, hollowed out, and parked in Earth's orbit. So that article really kicked things off in the modern world. But here's where it gets even weirder. The idea of an artificial moon, it's not new. Not at all. If you dig into ancient folklore, you start to find some stories that sound, well, eerily similar.
Just look at the Zulu legend of Wawan and Puku. The story goes that these two brothers, who had scaly, fish-like skin, by the way, they stole the moon. They described it as an egg, and they took it from a great fire dragon. And then, get this, they emptied out the yolk, making it hollow, and rolled it into orbit around Earth. I mean, come on, that's an incredible parallel to the whole spaceship theory, right? All right, so ancient legends are one thing, but the real proof, the thing that gets conspiracy theorists really excited, it doesn't come from old stories. Nope, it comes directly from NASA and the Apollo missions. And what they discovered was, well, it was just plain strange. See, NASA wanted to figure out what the moon was made of on the inside, so they came up with a pretty direct plan. Let's crash stuff into it. Seriously. They deliberately slammed parts of their spacecraft onto the lunar surface to create artificial moonquakes. And then they measured the vibrations with seismometers the astronauts left behind. And this wasn't just a one-off thing. In 1969, the Apollo 12 mission crashed its lunar module. Then, in 1970, they did it again, sending a huge piece of the Apollo 13 rocket smashing into the surface. And the results from these impacts? Let's just say nobody saw them coming. The data that came back was shocking. The vibrations didn't just fade away like they would here on Earth. Not even close. They just kept going and going. The phrase that stuck, the one everyone remembers, is that scientists said the moon rang like a bell. Just to give you an idea, after the Apollo 13 impact, which hit with the force of 11 tons of TNT, the moon kept vibrating for over 3 hours. For people who believe the theory, this was the smoking gun. A solid rock just doesn't do that. It had to be hollow. And this is really where the whole spaceship idea gets its legs. Here on Earth, you have a molten core and a ton of water, all of which absorb seismic energy pretty quickly, and earthquakes' vibrations fade. But the moon, it just kept on ringing, which seemed to scream that its internal structure was something completely different. Okay, but the ringing isn't the only piece of the puzzle, not by a long shot. People who support this theory also point to some, well, let's call it some very suspicious math. Math that feels a little too perfect, you know? So first up, let's talk about density. The moon's density is 3.34 grams per cubic centimeter. And I know, that's just a number. It doesn't mean much on its own. So let's put it into context. Earth, our home planet, has an average density of about 5.5 grams per cubic centimeter. So the moon is way, way less dense. We're talking only about 60% as dense as Earth. That's a massive difference. And that big gap in density is what makes people ask the question, is the moon lighter than it should be? Could it be because the inside is, well, partially empty? And then you've got this solar eclipse. I mean, think about it. It's this incredible, perfect cosmic alignment. The sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, but it's also 400 times farther away. The result? They look exactly the same size from here on Earth. For hollow moon theorists, that's no coincidence. That's design.
So let's recap. We've got a moon that rings like a bell, it's weirdly light, and it gives us perfect solar eclipses. It sounds pretty convincing, doesn't it? Okay, but now it's time to bring in the scientific explanation. Let's see how this all holds up.
So why does the moon ring for so long? Well, scientists have a pretty solid answer. It's not because it's hollow. It's because it's incredibly dry and rigid. There's no water, no molten core, nothing to absorb the shock waves. So the vibrations just travel through the solid rock forever. Think of it less like a hollow bell and more like a massive solid tuning fork.
And what about that low density? Again, it's not because there's a giant empty space inside. The real reason is that the moon doesn't have a huge, dense iron core like Earth does. That heavy core is what bumps up Earth's average density. The moon is basically made of lighter rock from the outside in. But if you want the real, hard science nail in the coffin for the hollow moon theory, it all comes down to one little number: 0.393. That's the moon's moment of inertia. Basically, it's a measurement of how its mass is spread out. So what's so special about 0.393? Well, a perfect, solid ball of uniform density would have a moment of inertia of exactly 0.4. The moon is at 0.393, which is extremely close. That's powerful evidence that its mass is distributed pretty evenly, just like a solid object. Now, a hollow sphere? That would have a value way up around 0.67. So the math just doesn't support a hollow moon at all.
So, okay, the science pretty clearly points to a solid moon. But that doesn't make the idea of a hollow one any less fascinating. It's had this incredible life in our stories and our imagination for a very long time. Long before those Soviet scientists ever wrote their paper, you had guys like H.G. Wells dreaming this stuff up. I mean, way back in 1901, his novel The First Men in the Moon featured, you guessed it, a hollow moon filled with an alien civilization called the Selenites. And really, that's what the hollow moon theory is at the end of the day. A really captivating piece of pseudoscience. It does something very clever. It takes real, weird observations, like the ringing and the perfect eclipses, and builds this amazing story around them. The only problem is, the story falls apart once you look at all the evidence, not just the bits that fit. But the fact that we're still talking about it says so much about us, doesn't it? We seem to have this deep, deep fascination with the unknown. We love stories that push the boundaries and make us question what we think we know. So that's the final thought I want to leave you with. What is it that pulls us into these theories? Is it really the evidence, or is it just the exciting possibility that the universe is way, way stranger than we ever imagined?